Next on Classic Sitcom Salon.
Well, we could begin with Mark Reynolds' testimony. I thought that Mark Reynolds' testimony was very straightforward. Doesn't Mr. Harris's testimony? I would like you to remember the testimony. Remember the testimony.
Oh, come on, Mrs. Fletcher.
Remember the testimony. The testimony. Now maybe we should dig deeper into the testimony.
Mrs. Fletcher.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you have heard the evidence, and the time has come for you to deliberate on your verdict. It is your sworn duty to determine if the defendant, Mark Lee Reynolds, is guilty, as the prosecution charges, of criminal homicide, or, as the defense contends, innocent in that he killed Clifford Anderson in self-defense. Now, your responsibility is to determine, based solely on the evidence and the testimony presented, and when you are in accordance, Madam Foreman, you shall deliver your verdict to the court. Bailiff, you'll escort the jury to the jury room for deliberation. Court is recessed till the verdict has been reached.
That homicide charge is as full of holes as a wheel of Swiss cheese.
Open and shut.
We could be out of here by 4:30.
I thought a murder trial would take weeks.
As long as the country's paying, let's order lunch.
We won't have time to eat it.
Excuse me, everyone. Please, let's not forget, we do have a 4-person.
Oh, thank you, Jackie. Now, I have to warn you, I've never been a jury 4-person before.
Afraid this case ain't gonna let you be one for long, Mrs. Fletcher.
Well, however long it takes, I hope you all help me to make the job as easy as possible.
Madam Foreman, if I may, I think that we are all pretty much of the same mind, so the job really doesn't call for much more than our vote.
Don't you think we should examine the evidence first?
The evidence says he's innocent of homicide.
He's guilty of one thing, picking the wrong time and place to go to bed with another man's wife.
You ride right over that fact. He was in bed with another man's wife, and he killed him when he walked in on them.
In self-defense.
Oh, yes. Now, about that. Now, there's one or 2 points that I don't quite understand. I'm not quite clear about.
Then let's vote. At least we'll know how close we are to a verdict.
Yes, I think that might be a very helpful idea. Frank, how should we go about the...
It's very simple. I think all we do is write down our verdict. I'll collect them, and you can count them.
Well, very well. Shall we,
Okay, yeah, write down our secret vote. Secret ballot. Make your vote, sir. Okay. You count them.
Yeah, here we are. So that's 9-2 for acquittal and 1 undecided. Seems we're not too far from an agreement.
Why do I get the feeling we're going to be here for a while?
Maybe it won't seem so long once we get started.
Started? Start where?
Well, I don't know. We could begin with Mark Reynolds' testimony.
I'd say that's a very good place to start.
Oh, fine. Which part of his testimony?
How about the fact that he and his wife were in a car accident that night? She went to the hospital, and he went off drinking?
By golly, in my day, I did a lot of that, but for different reasons.
I don't think anyone could call that unusual.
Well, under those circumstances, you're probably right. But now remember the district attorney's question in cross-examination. He asked him why he went to that bar when there were 6 other bars between the hospital and his hotel.
Do you mind if I say something?
Oh, Mr. Herman, yes.
It's just that, well, Mark Reynolds was talking. I never got the feeling he was trying to impress us. He was just trying to tell us the simple truth.
Is this your first time on jury duty, Mr. Harmon?
Look, I served on 6 juries, bud. This happens to be about my second murder trial. What about you?
All right. All right. I agree with Mr. Herman. Now, if anything, I thought Mark Reynolds' testimony was very straightforward.
Because he had nothing to hide.
He certainly didn't hedge around the way he met Becky Anderson, and that he didn't know she was married and getting divorced until her husband walked in on them carrying a gun.
I don't know what more you need. The husband attacked him. The defendant defended himself.
I don't believe a word of it.
Well, I do.
You people are crazy. He's lying.
All right. Now, what makes you think so, Mr. Bentley?
I know it. I know he is.
That's a great way to reach a verdict.
Look, miss, I know that man is guilty of sin, and there isn't anybody here going to change that. It don't take much to see who the bleeding hearts are in this room, but I don't care much. We can sit here till Christmas time if that's what you want. That man is guilty.
Oh, no, that's...
Why, Miss Fletcher, this jury...
Sit down!
Why, Miss Fletcher, this jury has just been hung by this man with an open mind.
More like an open cavity, if you ask me.
Oh, please. Mr. Bentley is entitled to hold any opinion that he wishes. Now, maybe we should dig deeper into the testimony.
Oh, come on, Mrs. Fletcher.
No, now there was another witness who saw what happened that morning, and that was Becky Anderson.
She's as big a liar as he is, Reynolds. And I'll tell you something else. Mr. Moneybags is not what he seems.
Moneybags?
Yeah, rich and got it all. Used to have everything his own way.
Hey, he isn't rich. His wife has the money.
Well, he's got it now.
Now look, Mark Reynolds is on trial, not his lifestyle.
I take it, Mrs. Fletcher, you were the one of the two for conviction.
If she wasn't, you think he'd be sitting here re-examining the evidence?
Well, actually, Miss McKay, I'm undecided.
Oh, you're the undecided one. What are you going to try to do, Miss Fletcher? Turn this into one of your cobulated whodunits?
Look, I'm afraid, Frank, that this case is not as simple as it seems.
Lady, this is a very simple case of a one-night stand being marred by a tragic coincidence.
Interesting that you should say coincidence. There's one thing that I have a very hard time forgetting.
A couple of things have been puzzling me also.
Oh, great. Another country heard from.
Excuse me, but I was bothered by what Fenton Harris said.
I told you Reynolds was a liar.
He said he thought he saw Becky with Reynolds, but he wasn't sure.
How could he be sure? He's half blind.
Mrs. Fletcher.
Yes. Jackie, I think that we seriously have to re-examine the notion that this was merely a one-night stand.
Suppose this and suppose that. Now you have to stop this, Miss Fletcher. You can't turn this into one of your make-believe murder mysteries.
Yes, all right, yes, you're absolutely right. I agree. But even if the woman in the car wasn't Becky, doesn't Mr. Harris's testimony say something about Mark Reynolds' character and his marriage?
Yeah, it makes you wonder how much you can trust him.
Mrs. McKay, you likely have nothing to do all day but sitting and listening to soap operas.
And just what is that supposed to mean?
It means I have a business to run and I can't afford to waste any time away from my shop.
Well, that's just too bad about you. There's a few more of us with businesses to run. Short of turning this into a hung jury, you're going to have to stick it out like we are.
Look, I'm sure that none of us want a hung jury, Mr. Bentley.
Look. About Reynolds fooling around, I can understand that. My first wife had all of the money, so I know what it feels like, believe me. You just want to prove something, if only to yourself.
Well, that's interesting. I hadn't really thought of it that way.
Well, he's got the money now, enough to hire a fancy Manhattan lawyer with his $600 suits.
Will you get off that? This lawyer is not on trial.
Yeah, slick guy like that. Wonder why he didn't hire someone local.
We keep getting away from the issue.
Yeah, that's right. It's Mrs. Fletcher and her minions who are so anxious to see him hang.
Oh, good heavens. Is that what you think? Really, all I'm trying to do is to examine both sides.
And examine, and examine, and examine, and examine.
Well, I, for one, cannot find any fault with that.
All right on cue, honey.
All right, look. We know that Mr. Reynolds' lawyer wants us to believe self-defense. But now you'll remember that the district attorney painted a very different picture in his opening statement when he said that Reynolds and Becky Anderson conspired to kill Cliff Anderson.
If it was a conspiracy, then why isn't Becky Anderson on trial?
Money, my friend. Her lawyer fixed it so she'd get tried separately. Well, when we convict him, the next jury will do the same to her.
The district attorney said reasonable doubt. Well, I've got it. That's why I'm voting for acquittal.
So am I.
I know you are, but what am I?
And me.
Maybe I will too.
Okay, yes. But what if Fenton Harris did see Becky? What if Mark and Becky weren't strangers?
I thought we'd been through all that.
Oh, for goodness sakes. Why can't you people just listen a minute? I mean, after all this woman has a brilliant criminal mind. Oh, that's not what I meant.
Maybe it's my criminal mind that sees this in a very complicated puzzle. And if so just bear with me. On the surface, it appears that two strangers meet in a bar and become fast friends. But if you believe Fenton Harris, the motel owner, you have to believe that Mark and Becky already to one another. And if that's true, why this complicated charade in the bar?
Oh, I know why. They wanted to be seen.
Yes, that's exactly what I keep thinking.
Oh, please.
Puzzle piece number 1. Where did Cliff Anderson get the gun? Now, that's an important question because a great deal of the prosecution's case relies on the answer.
I think the general assumption was that he picked it up on his way to his wife's house.
It was midnight when he got the call. Now, where would he have gotten it? Remember, the ballistics expert said the gun had no registration, and he said he made a nitrate test on the hands of both Mark Reynolds and Cliff Anderson. The only fingerprints on that gun were those of Cliff Anderson and Mark Reynolds.
Proving a struggle, proving self-defense.
Proving that this whole thing was planned to lure this poor man to his death.
And proving what I said about Reynolds all along.
You people must be from some other planet. Will you listen to yourselves? A guy has a car accident. His wife is fatally injured, so he leaves her in a hospital to go meet a dame, because he and this dame have some idea about killing her husband by maybe luring him to her house. I mean, please. You gotta have rocks in your heads. And as for you, Mrs. Fletcher, you've let this whole thing get out of hand. I think it's time for you to step aside and let somebody else run these proceedings, somebody who has a vague idea of what they are doing.
Oh, sit down. You're talking too much.
Mrs. Fletcher's doing quite nicely. Thank you.
I certainly don't want the job.
My lord, I'm perfectly willing to step aside if that's what everybody wants.
That certainly won't be necessary, Mrs. Fletcher.
Hey, it's perfectly okay. I've got lots of time.
All right, well, let's get back to another part of the puzzle that doesn't quite fit Becky Anderson's neighbor.
Oh, yeah.
Let me say that line again with
Sure,
more dramatic effect. Let's get back to another part of the puzzle that doesn't quite fit Becky Anderson's neighbor.
Oh, yeah. The wimp who came home to find the husband's car blocking the driveway.
It still doesn't prove conspiracy.
No, it does prove that if Mark and Becky were looking for a volatile response, all they had to do was wait for Clifford Anderson to show up.
You know, for once, Bentley, I think you do have a point. Mrs. Fletcher, maybe you have been right all along.
Now, I haven't been saying I'm right, Mr. Callahan. I'm just trying to find the proper pieces to fit into their proper places.
That's what she said.
Perhaps we were a little hasty, presuming Reynolds was innocent.
Maybe Cliff Anderson didn't have the gun.
No. If there's one thing I'm ready to accept, is that he brought that gun into the house with them.
Now wait a minute. You talk half the room out of the boat. You talk half the room out of believing it was self-defense, and then you tell us.
No, Mister. Now I am not telling you anything, Mr. Pee Wee Herman, but I would like you to remember the testimony of that traffic officer.
Miss Fletcher, you're bringing us right back where we started from.
Oh, no, not really.
What do you mean, not really? If Anderson brought the gun, then Reynolds killing him was self-defense, which it was not.
Well, I'm sorry, Mr. Bentley, but it might have been
a joyous waste of time.
Really, Pee Wee? If you didn't want to serve, what are you doing here?
I couldn't dream up another excuse they'd believe, okay?
Oh, please.
Now look, I posed the question about the gun because we have all been overlooking something, and me included, I'm afraid. It bears on the struggle for the gun.
And what would that be?
Well, the fact that Mark Reynolds had injured his shoulder in the automobile accident. Remember the testimony of the paramedics who took Mark and his wife to the hospital? They said Mark was in pain, but didn't want to take time away from getting his wife to the hospital.
Miss Fletcher, will you please get to the point?
Well, my point is that neither the paramedic nor Dr. Webster treated Mark Reynolds' shoulder.
Are you implying he wasn't hurt?
No, not at all.
Okay, so would you please tell us what does the broken collarbone have to do with whether or not he had the gun?
Yeah. Would you stand up, Mr. Lord? No. May I borrow your cane for just a moment, please? Okay. Mr. Lord, good. Yeah. You take this. Good. Yes. I see. You're right-handed too.
What do you mean, two?
Mr. Mark Reynolds' right-hand fingerprints were on the poker, so his injury made his left arm practically useless. It would have been almost impossible for him to aim the gun, let alone struggle over with Clifford Anderson.
Well, maybe Becky Anderson had the gun.
Yes, but the traces of gunpowder were on his left hand, his and Cliff's.
Good point. But if he couldn't hold a gun, much less struggle for one, then how did the powder traces get there?
Well, now look, that's a question I can't answer. Now, there are a couple of other things that do bother.
I think I've had it. There's only so much testimony, and we've gone over it all. Broken collarbones, powder traces, whatever. Anderson is dead. Reynolds killed him. I'm still calling it that.
Hey, I've heard nothing that changes my mind.
Oh, come on, you people. I'm so tired of being around here. I can't
Maybe
believe
that's because you people haven't been listening very hard. Mrs. Fletcher has made a lot of sense so far. Why can't we just keep talking and listening? Huh? I mean, we're reasonably intelligent people here. We ought to be able to sort this thing out, darn it. That's what we're here for, aren't we?
Well, she is right. Why don't we just keep at it?
Okay, Mrs. Fletcher, you've got the floor.
Oh dear. No, I wish I could be a little bit more sure about what I'm doing with it. Now, look, I have three major problems. Things that make no sense the way they were presented. For one thing, I believe Mr. Harris.
The motel owner.
Yes, I really do think Mark and Becky knew each other before the night her husband was killed.
Now we're getting somewhere.
Well, but Mr. Lord, you also have made a very, very persuasive argument. I mean, it seems ludicrous that these two people with Mark's wife lying critically ill in a hospital bed would choose this night to lure Becky's husband to his death.
Well, thank you, Miss Fletcher.
Well, if it wasn't premeditated, then it had to be self-defense. There isn't anything else.
But there is something else, Mr. Callahan. A third possibility that none of us have yet considered.
Mrs. Fletcher, what other possibility? What are you talking about?
Miss Fletcher, if this is another one of your trips to Fantasyland...
Frank, will you just sit there and shut up and listen?
Let's hear it, Mrs. Fletcher.
Yeah. What we have to do is to take a look at two particular statements, contradictory statements, starting with Mark Reynolds' description of what happened when Becky's husband burst through that bedroom door.
We've gone over that!
For the last time. Now, he said that there were words exchanged, and suddenly they were struggling for a gun. Mark picked up the poker, the gun went off, and Mark struck Anderson with the poker. Then the police were called. Now, all that couldn't have taken more than, 10 minutes at most.
No argument. Go on.
Then what about Arthur Jasper?
The next door neighbor.
Exactly. The next door neighbor whose driveway was blocked. Now, how did he put it? If Mark Reynolds hadn't hit Cliff with a poker a couple of hours later when I looked out the window, it could have been his body being taken out in the ambulance instead of Cliff Anderson's.
He did say that a couple of hours later.
If Mark Reynolds had been telling the truth, the police and the ambulance would have been there
almost immediately.
You got it.
Yes.
It took me a while to get it down. So they say they lied. Why?
Yes.
Why?
Yes.
And why was Cliff Anderson doing it? What was Cliff Anderson doing in her apartment all the time?
The way Reynolds told it, they called the police less than 5 minutes after he got there.
But obviously they didn't. They lied. Now, leaving us, I'm afraid, with only one inescapable conclusion and only one possible verdict.
The defendant will rise. Ladies and gentlemen of the juror, have you reached your verdict?
We have, Your Honor.
How do you find?
We find the defendant and his testimony not guilty.
The defendant, as well as his testimony, is released. Ladies and gentlemen of the juror, I thank you for your efforts. Court is adjourned.
Excuse me, prosecutor, Mr. Caselli. Could we meet in your office?
Sure, I suppose so, but
You might also want to ask Becky Anderson to be there with her attorney. We're going to your office. Let's go to your office.
a Fletcher. Lamb Chop, do you know the Jessica Fletcher? Have you met Jessica Fletcher, Lamb Chop?
I know the lady by the reputation.
How do you do, Mr. Ramsey?
Ma'am, huh?
Have you met Becky Anderson?
Well, we haven't been introduced. Hello.
Mrs. Fletcher.
Gotta say, you people in the jury, they surprised me any.
That's so.
I did figure you'd come in sooner with the verdict.
Well, Mr. Ramsey, it's very simple. You see, in our opinion, that is the jury's, that Becky Anderson killed her husband.
That's not true.
What the hell is this?
Hear her out, Lamb Chop. It gets very interesting.
It's a bunch of damn hogwash. The same evidence that's got the first verdict is going to clear my client.
Well, that didn't exactly find that on the evidence.
You didn't?
No, one thing we couldn't understand is what happened when your husband arrived at your apartment.
Mark explained that.
Well, not to our satisfaction, I'm afraid. In fact, we feel that he was lying.
No!
Mark's story about struggling for the gun and wielding that fireplace poker now. It really is so much nonsense considering his collarbone injury from the accident.
I was there. I saw it.
Yes, you were there, but you didn't see anything. You're the one who struck the fatal blow.
While Mark stood by and watched?
No. We don't believe that he was even there when it happened.
Really? And just where was he, Mrs. Fletcher?
Well, he was at the hospital, murdering his wife.
Play Hail Columbia and salute the flag. Will you listen to that?
Well, that is what happened, isn't it, Becky?
No.
Not a shred of this will fly.
Mark Reynolds had been to the Bidewee Motel at least 6 times. How many others might he have gone to? And on that night of his wife's dying, he picked up another woman in a tavern?
It was an accident encounter.
With a woman he'd been seen with 6 weeks earlier.
That testimony was refuted by cross-examination.
It's not refuted, merely challenged.
Miss Fletcher, maybe you can make something like this work in one of your novels, but not in a court of law.
Becky.
That was the first time I saw him. You heard the bartender.
And the bartender heard what you and Mark wanted him to hear. The reason for this accidental meeting was to give Mark an alibi from a so-called stranger. Well, his motive is clear. He loved Becky. His wife of less than a year had all the money. He wanted both.
Next thing you'll say is the car accident that damn near killed him and his wife was deliberate.
See, no. I believe it was. I believe it was a former professional race car driver. He staged it so that his wife would be killed. He wore the seatbelt. She never did. He slammed her side of the car into that utility pole. It was a made-to-order murder. Now, remember the paramedic saying she asked why? She wasn't asking why he tried to kill her or why she was doing that. Let me take that back. She wasn't, when she was saying why, she was saying why he tried to kill her. The fact that she didn't die in impact and the fact that the doctor said she could regain consciousness and expose him meant he had to quickly improvise a foolproof alibi. So he called Becky. And who else could he trust? And what better alibi than to be in bed with another woman?
She's wrong, Mr. Ramsey. You have to believe me.
Well, it would have worked except for 2 unforeseen events. First was your being remembered by the motel man. The other was your husband's learning of you being in that tavern. When he came home to your house, he found you alone. Now, you couldn't let anyone know that Mark wasn't with you, so you had to kill him.
That's not how it happened. He was furious. He had a gun.
Don't say anymore.
I'm not going to face this alone.
Miss Anderson, don't incriminate yourself.
If she wants to cooperate, Lamb Chop, we could cut a deal. If the husband's death really was self-defense.
Even if Miss Fletcher is right and my client and Reynolds were mixed up in his wife's murder?
She could plead second degree in the wife's death. I want my Mark Reynolds.
Becky? All right. Tell us the entire story.
I was alone. Mark had been gone about a half hour, 40 minutes by the time Cliff came. He was in a rage. He said all sorts of... He was horrible, ugly. He had a gun. He wouldn't believe I was alone. And when he found out I was, he demanded to know who the man was and where he was. He swore he'd kill me. The poker was in my hand and I hit him. He fell. It was a half an hour, maybe more when Mark came back. He said it was made to order, a foolproof alibi. He confessed to killing Cliff in self-defense, and that way no one would have the slightest hint he killed his wife in cold blood.
Wow. That was quite a monologue, Becky. It's my show. And to make certain that it looked like self-defense, he saw to it that his fingerprints were on the poker and that powder traces were on his left hand. And so that the bullet fired into the wall. And all that was left for you was to call the police.
He said it was easy to sneak into his wife's hospital room. A pillow over her face. As weak as she was, she died instantly.
The deal holds, lamb chop, but I need her on the witness stand.
She'll be there.
Mrs. Fletcher.
Oh, Mr. Reynolds.
How can I thank you for your verdict?
Oh, well, there's no need. The satisfaction is knowing that the right thing has been done.
Nevertheless, I just want you to know I'll always remember you.
Oh, yes. I'm quite sure you will.
You're under arrest, Mr. Reynolds. Come on.
What?
Testimony. Thank you all. Everyone's up. Thank you guys. Thank you everyone who is watching and for the comments.
Hey, Jessica Fletcher.
Rock and roll.
I think Lamb Chop is getting her own spin-off tonight. What could you do with Lamb Chop, Barney Miller?
Yeah.
Cagney and Lacey.
Oh, of course. The nice one.
I loved watching Eben react to Lamb Chop. And try to keep it. I was cackling.
Oh my God. Wait, I gotta watch more of the shows, but I don't remember when Becky Anderson had that long monologue. I can't. Did that normally happen? Because I was like, "Whoa, she's taking a lot from Angela."
Yes. It was long.
Yes, I watched it.
Her testimony was rather long.
Yes. And thank you, Danielle, for not running out of animals. And
No, my cats got pissed halfway through. I had to let them go or I was going to get bit.
We heard it.
You were all so amazing, everyone in this whole entire cast, and you were all so amazing, everyone. I love working with you all.
Hey, Kermit.
You too.
Oh my God.
I like being Pee-wee, and something I also like is this floating Coke bottle.
Oh, yeah, Magic Coke.
What is that? Witchcraft?
No, green screen.
oh,
I don't.
oh,
I don't believe in green.
Fancy.
Ed found his green screen glove.
now we have
Something else
special
to
effects
solve.
we
Yeah,
can
these
do.
are green screen gloves.
Nice.
Oh, wow.
Nice. We got to do some special effects now. So even though the script was hacked to pieces, it is written by Peter S. Fisher, Richard Wilson, and William Link, putting it out there. But this had the most. So we cut, obviously for the sake of time, we cut out the flashbacks to the testimonies.
Testimonies, yes.
But we did prefer the only lines that were safe were lines that included the word testimony. But so they keep jumping back to these flashbacks, but it was played like the bartender that they referenced was played by the dad from Teen Wolf. And then
I love the bartender. That's the only part I wish we had in, like where he's like in between them. Like there's no other reason for him to just be like, "Hello."
Yes.
Skipper. from Gilligan's Island is on this.
That's right.
He's
Ellen Hill.
Is he one of the
He was maybe the motel owner.
Yes, thank you. But what do you call that? Witnesses.
Witness, yeah.
On the camera.
Vicki Lawrence was Lucy's part.
Yes.
And
And she
Pee Wee
loves
Herman was
Mrs.
not.
Fletcher. She loves Mrs. Fletcher.
Pee Wee Herman was not in the original show.
Not, no.
But thank you. I love
What? We had a mother and a son playing the same role tonight.
Oh.
I would love if we did this again with the pets and the plush animals and the puppets for like another script. It was so much fun.
Yeah.
We did it with Barney Miller.
Ooh, Kayla said, Lamb Chop is Archie Bunker.
Yeah, that would be funny.
Yay!
That'd be great.
Thank you.
I loved the more Lamb Chop swore in this. I loved it. Oh, the guy that played the attorney that Lamb Chop has now replaced, but the guy who played this role, I remember as the announcer. My mother would watch Days of Our Lives all the time.
Oh my God.
And he was the announcer at the end.
Oh wow.
And I remember looking specifically for his name because he literally so he would announce the show at the end, and then he would say,
Hourglass guy?
"What?"
Like Sand Through the Hourglass?
Yes.
So, Days of Our
Yes.
Lives.
Yes, he did that, and then he would do kind of the closing credit thing, and he would always announce himself at the end. But it literally, his name was McDonald Carey, but he literally would be like, "And I'm a gum carrot." And so I know his name because I looked for it because I was like, what kind of name is Magum Carrot? But he has this, like, I don't know if it's a brogue, it's a transatlantic kind of thing going on, which was great, and which Lamb Chop fits.
You know, who said someone should play, a Lamb Chop should play Archie Bunker? Do we all know that who they wanted for Jessica Fletcher?
Was it Sherry Lewis?
No.
Was it the actress who played?
Oh,
no, it was Gene Stapleton.
Oh.
They wanted Gene Stapleton to do it, and she turned it down.
But I think the
That was a bad choice. She should have.
No, she was
should
fine.
have
Yeah,
taken it.
Angela Lansbury would say like, "Thank you very much" all the time.
That's right.
Yeah.
I know this episode had so much of her sort of, I don't know, bookish false modesty. I don't know what you call it.
Yeah, she got slammed a lot in this one.
Yes.
I mean, if anything, though, like by then, this is what the second season. It's like with all these mystery detectives, you know, why they wouldn't just like her track record's pretty good so far, you know, in solving crimes. You know,
Right, why would
like
they
when
want her on a
cheated?
jury?
yeah, you know, it's more like Hercule Poirot or Miss Marple or Sherlock Holmes. Like if anyone's like, okay, Wayne and I, we're gonna kill someone, but like, okay, so this detective shows up on the premise who is undefeated, but let's still go through with it. You know what I mean? I was like we have a bad, like they never call it off when the detective's presence is on the scene. You know what I mean? No.
No.
If someone were going to commit a murder and then the great detective is there at dinner, but the murder hasn't happened yet, why do they go through with it? Because they're always going to get found out.
Right.
Detectives
They know,
never.
right.
I'm sorry, Mel.
Because I'm sure the murderers talk amongst themselves.
Yeah.
Isn't that Glass Onion? Exactly.
Oh, is it?
Right? Yeah.
My face.
The detective shows up and then the murders happen.
Yeah, and then the murders happen, but why would they do it? If
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. Why not call it off?
Stupidest.
You don't know the
Because in this case, like the jury being like, we don't want to listen to you, Miss Fletcher. Like, she's just killed yet. Yeah.
I don't know.
Like the Phoenix.
Yes.
Yeah.
Pee Wee Herman shall rise again.
Yeah.
Playing Pee Wee Herman was really fun too.
You were great.
You were awesome.
I love
you
the
know
different-
I know you. I know you are, but what am I?
That was some good. Yeah, that was a good.
I actually like the pairing of that puppet with Pee-wee as well, and the interplay.
Yes.
So next month, we don't know yet what we're doing. Because
Do we ever?
No, I keep teasing the.
What are we
Thornbirds.
doing for the Thanksgiving episode? For the Thanksgiving theme in November, what show were you thinking of?
I don't know. We still have. I mean, there's the Muppet Show.
We did WKRP
Ooh,
in Cincinnati.
show.
It was our first YouTube show. And by the way, Wayne put it up like it was our first show, and it got like 125,000 views immediately. I think just because of the nature of people searching the term.
No Muppet Babies.
Muppet Babies?
No.
Ooh, I love Muppet Babies.
No.
Maybe they could be played. A character could be played by the Muppet Babies, but it would.
I actually have Muppet Baby plushies right here, and like some Muppet Baby
Burn
figurines.
them.
Yeah.
They should die like Daniel Tiger.
Oh. No.
Oh,
Well, you guys did the Muppet Show, and how did that go over?
Muppet.
horribly.
Was it bad?
No, I'm kidding. It was so fun.
We
Because
loved
it was a Liza Minnelli episode, so it had that great film noir.
Yeah.
thing. It had the storyline, you know. But I loved Kermit as
Kermit was great.
it fit this character, even the actor who played him.
Kermit was perfect.
There are a lot of actors in
So
here
much
that
fun.
you've just seen and stuff. You know what I mean? Like you just or not. I will say this: this episode was based on 12 Angry Men. If you couldn't tell,
Oh wow.
I recognize the cane scene when they reenact the steps with the cane, but I'm sure there was a lot else going on.
Yeah, Henry Fonda. It was a great movie.
Yeah, I saw it again recently, a month ago. It's very good.
That it was. I know. They're making a musical. They're making 12 Angry Men the musical.
What?
What?
We can't decide.
Who directed 12 Angry Men? It was very good. I mean, it's a great play, but sometimes that doesn't translate.
Oh, it was a teleplay that was turned into a play.
And then turned into a movie. The movie is really good and not like it's not stagey at all.
No, you're right.
It's very good.
And then they did the. It was Reginald Rose who wrote 12 Angry Men. And then there was like another teleplay done with like Tony Danza and.
Yes, yeah, in the 90s, right, or the early 2000s.
Yeah,
yeah.
And James Gandolfini and a few other people. It was fun.
It must have been the 90s before James Gandolfini was.
Oh, Pee-wee's on break, you guys.
Yes, Pee-wee.
Pee-wee's on break.
Someone's TV on. What's
But I think with that, we're at a smooth 48 minutes and change.
Yes.
So I think that's it, guys. We have
I'm sorry. I thought you said we should do 48 hours next. I'm like, no.
Good movie.
Oh, not 48 hours. What's the 48? What's the Dateline? Like, wasn't there one that was like Dateline was like 48 something or?
48 hours, I think. It was 48 hours.
It was 48 hours.
Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
The movie was better than the show.
Yeah.
Yes, the news show.
Yeah, I think we should do an episode of 48 hours.
But we are so the next
60
thing.
minutes. 60 minutes. Let's go to the top.
So we're going to do an episode of 60 Minutes on October 17th, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard or maybe Daylight Time. So October 17th is the next one. We'll come up with something to do. And then it all leads to Rudolph, and all roads lead to December.
Yes.
What do you want?
Oh,
Countdown is on.
Yeah.
Countdown is on.
Beyonce's already pointing at me to do
Third
Rudolph.
time I'm doing Rudolph.
So tell Wayne that the Jimmy's already getting excited about Rudolph.
Perfect.
Thank
Okay.
you for
It's so fun.
including me again.
And it has a
Thank you
million
for
parts.
listening.
So
What?
anyway, you guys, thank you all so much for doing this. Thank you everyone who is watching, commenting, etc.
Thank
Lamb
you,
Chop
Wayne.
has a lot of contracts to sign, and it's already gone to another. Oh,
Oh dear.
she's on TikTok already. She's
That's right.
crossed over. Okay.
That's
Thank you so much. Have a great night, everyone, or a great day.
Take care, everyone.
Have both.
Thanks.
Have 3. Good night.
Bye bye.
Testimony.
Testimony.